traveling across the state, you kind of get a sense certain communities have a charm about them, a certain cohesiveness that others don't, which Vinton definitely has compared to a lot of the places I've been this month. So what I wanted to do, I did the retail analysis for Iowa State for the last 3.5 years. And my background, I went to graduate school for economics, but I grew up in a retail environment. I grew up in Dubuque, Iowa, and my parents were retail business owners, so I kind of come at it from a little bit broader perspective because I understand individual business owners' concerns, but also what's going on in the bigger economy. One of the things we talk about a lot if we're analyzing retail trends is your trade area. When I speak in communities across the state, they generally want to identify this as basically if you put a dot in the middle of your town, they want an equal circumference around so that they can say our trade area is 30 miles west, east, north, and south, but it's not uniform across the state. Vinton is such a great example of that because of your location, proximity to both Waterloo, Cedar Falls, and Cedar Rapids. Your trade area is heavily influenced by those two communities, sometimes in good ways, sometimes to the negative. Within that, every small community factors in. But the way I look at it, I noticed you had 3 furniture stores, which is incredibly unusual for a town of this size. If someone were going to put another furniture store in a community within a 20-mile radius of you, they probably wouldn't do it because of the 3 you have. So that is kind of another way to look at your trade area. The business decisions and the location of businesses in one community, if that community influences what happens in Vinton or vice versa, they're part of your trade area. So usually I start off and just give you some demographic background. Now, I'm going to put up a slide here, and it looks crazy because of the scale of it, just showing what's happened with Vinton's population. Let me give you some background on why this looks a little bit crazy. The U.S. Census Bureau does the population estimates, and after the 2000 census, they might go back and revise estimates. So right after the census, you can see what looks like a really sharp decline in your population. You probably wouldn't have felt it. It could have been a loss of maybe 15 people, but the Census Bureau had adjusted that. So the overall trend, you've had some changes, but really you've held steady right around 5,000 residents, as I'm sure you all are aware. One of the things that we like to look at, because it gives you a sense of what kind of retail you can support, is the distribution of income. And one of the comments that I made to Don is that a community I was in this week, usually in a town of 5,000, good noise, you have a certain, I don't know if I can talk over the thunder, so you have a certain distribution of income we expect to see. And Vinton, actually, this shows you the household income for Vinton and Benton County, as well as the state of Iowa average. And you can see that for households earning $50,000 or more, Benton County has a higher distribution than the state of Iowa, and Vinton lags just a little bit. In terms of people under $20,000 a year, you can see Vinton has a little bit above the state average. Now, some of this has to do with the types of households. This will take into account transfer payments, people on Social Security. So we kind of expect this distribution given the distribution in the age of your population. And I just wanted to put this up to give you a sense. The best indicator of retail health, obviously, for us is the number of people in your community plus income levels. And I think this recession just illustrates again how important all of that actually is. But I wanted to give you a sense of where you fit in terms of per capita personal income. So what we do is take all the income in the area and divide it by the number of residents. This gives you a sense that Vinton is actually, in terms of income, growing more rapidly than Benton County, which is definitely a positive thing. A lot of times you'll see them tracking each other fairly consistently. Instead, you're outpacing the growth in Benton. lag the statewide average a little bit. But again, this is not unusual either, because the statewide average, we have such a large concentration of population in our 10 metros that that statewide average is heavily influenced. So if for a community of 5,000 to have this type of income level is actually highly unusual. And a lot of it has to do with your commuting patterns and where people are earning the money as opposed to where they're residing. So this is I think one of the most amazing things that happened in Iowa. Between 1990 and 2000, communities of this size saw a 70% increase in commuting. Out commuting, let me put it that way, not in commuting, out commuting. And a lot of what's happened across the state is that communities with a population of around 5,000 like Vinton, a lot of communities that size were heavily manufacturing dependent. And manufacturing dependence has its downside, which is if we get hit in a really hard recession, it has dramatic impacts on jobs, whether you can retain your population. So coming out of the 1980s recession, which was devastating to manufacturing, that's why we saw this huge increase in out-commuting rates. These commuting rates are so incredibly important because it tells you, it's somewhat amazing. I'm going to show you where Vinton fits in. But people start getting into the habit of shopping where they work. They've already got the sunk cost of fuel. They've already invested the time. And they start economizing on their shopping trips and spending more money where they work instead of where they live, which is something we see in the data quite often. That's why I think, given your commuting rates, how stunning it is, how many businesses you have here, and how vibrant that they look.